Everybody, and welcome to our live stream today. I feel like a broadcaster. I'm so excited for our live because we're talking about ethics and coding, which is fantastic. So I know there's a couple people gonna jump on this today and chat with us about ethics. And I know lots of people have been asking, like, is Googling cheating, especially when you're a coder? And I'll let them tell you if it is or if it's not. So we'll just wait for a couple more of our creators to jump on today. We're a little bit short, but that is okay. We're hoping that Dom joins us a little bit later. But we have our amazing two other creators, Ziad and Louise, who are going to jump on a little bit more about the ethics in coding today, which is awesome. So we're just going to wait for them to join, and then we'll jump right into the conversation today. Hi, how are you doing, Louise?
Hello, hello. How are you?
Good, very good. It's good to see your face back on our live stream. We are here every Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. PST. Finally got it right. I am so excited for daylight savings to come back and screw up our time again, but for now we're at this good time. I feel like this works for everybody, so that's good. We're just going to wait for Ziad here to jump on, but we're talking about ethics and coding today, which is fantastic. I know a lot of people have been asking about this topic, and we've had a couple questions. So if you are in watching this live today and you have any questions about ethics and coding or anything coding related, you're absolutely welcome to throw it in the chat, and we'll answer some of your questions today, which is awesome. So we're just waiting for Ziad here. I'm just going to shoot him a message to see if he's getting on okay.
Yeah, very interesting topic, definitely. Ethics in programming. I don't think it's discussed as much as it should be, so you're in for a good one.
Definitely. I see that Ziad's joining here, and we'll jump right into the questions. Fantastic. Very excited about this topic. Hi, Ziad. How are you doing?
Hey guys, doing pretty well. How are you?
Very good. So I was just telling everyone ethics and coding. We already have the chat. Thank you so much, Sarah 19 Wise. So we'll answer that one right after our first question. I appreciate if anybody has any other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. So to start off our ethics and coding questions, we'll start with Ziad and move down the list. Is there any official rules or books about ethics and codings that other people can rely on, or is there any like unspoken rules? I guess those are kind of two different questions. But Zia, do you want to start us off here?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's any code of conduct online when it comes to programming or anything specific like that. But most of like when people talk about in programming, there's kind of like two big subjects that pop up. The first one is usually when it comes to like privacy, especially like when a big company like Meta, for example, like how it deals with the privacy of its users, the privacy of the user data, things like that. And then there's also just like as a developer, what personal code of conduct do you kind of follow? Like first of all, what projects do you work on, or like what projects do you choose to contribute to? And then also there's the big question of like open source. So that means like can I use other people's code versus should everything be like original? So while there's no like big overarching kind of like code of conduct or privacy book or something that everybody abides by, there is sort of these like unspoken rules on like what you should and shouldn't do, which I'm sure like we'll answer more specifics later on. But usually like the way I've seen it is that the biggest tech companies in the world will kind of set these standards to per se, and if they don't set the standards, like public opinion will let them know. Like recently, Meta has had tons of issues. Meta and Facebook have had tons of issues relying around or revolving around like user privacy, user data, and they weren't doing a very good job about it. So a lot of folks, developers and like users, went out and like spoke out against them, kind of similar to like activism almost, and they would like tell them, hey, like you should be doing X, Y, and Z. And then Facebook started building like a privacy engineering team and started this like bigger trend of, hey, as a company, this is how you should deal with privacy. So I think there's a lot of unspoken rules, but ultimately it's either driven by like the people, like developers kind of speaking out against things that shouldn't be happening, or companies will set the standards for other companies on how to deal with these kind of sensitive subjects. So yeah, that's kind of my answer there. Louise, what do you think?
Great overview.
Yeah, no, I watched a whole documentary that tackle these topics. It's exactly as Ziad said, like the bigger companies, they basically set the standards for the rest. I think technological development has happened so quick that these things they weren't in the forefront when, for example, companies make their product. They didn't really keep in mind, okay, how do we go on with user privacy? It was afterwards that all of the problems came up and it became a concern that they went and they developed a privacy team. And people that have been working on these bigger companies, they seem to be really concerned about it. So I think that, yeah, as time went on, we did get better at it, but a lot of people aren't even aware of these privacy issues, for example, at those bigger companies, for example. It's just not something that, yeah, developers keep in mind, I think, when they are developing a new product. And then ultimately, these types of questions arise. Like, is it ethical to have your data tracked if you're using a specific service? And while we ask these questions, like, is it ethical or not? The matter of the fact is, the moment you create an account, like I go on Google or Facebook and I create an account, from that point on, I agree. I basically give consent to have my data used for targeting practices or whatever. So I think it is being, like, the information is there, but companies should be more transparent about it as well. I feel like they they aren't transparent enough about it in some cases. Then I think it can definitely be improved.
Definitely. Those are really that's a really strong start to the conversation. Wow, I'm so excited to get in. So interesting. So you guys were talking about well, Ziad specifically talking about people, well, and I guess Louise as well was talking about people versus like companies with like their standard practices. So can you guys maybe give an example of like one company practice that they're like, this is a standard, and then one from the public that they're like, this is a standard practice, don't do this. Or do
Yeah, I think I can start with like a personal experience actually. So like I had been working for like this smaller company at some point, and basically what happened is that like this company had like a huge data breach. They got like hacked. A lot of user data was out there. It was not like a pretty scene at all. And they realized that they hadn't put enough of an emphasis on like user privacy. So what they did is like the executive team, like the CEO, CTO, like all those kind of folks, they got together in a room and basically decided two things. First of all, like we need to clarify all of our like our mission statement, like our goals that we talk about internally and things like that, to include this huge concept of privacy. And basically, what that means is that, like, with every single feature that the company builds or like every new product that it launches, it asks itself, like, within engineering teams, are we doing this in a way that protects user data? And that was like a requirement, kind of like checkbox to be checked before launching anything. And then the bigger thing that they did as well is that this is kind of going back to what you said, where bigger companies set the standard. It's they looked at a company like Facebook, and they saw that Facebook had built out this entire organization with people that they call privacy engineers. So it's like you're no longer a software engineer, you're a privacy engineer. And basically what that means is that like your sole purpose at the company is to first of all build tools so that other engineers can like make sure that everything they build is up to code and like is following whatever like laws are in place right now when it comes to user data. And at the same time they are kind of like, voices of action to say like they're the ones that really like when they see something wrong, they're the ones that are expected to say it essentially. So the company I work for kind of followed that model where we built out like a little smaller version of like a privacy team, and they were the ones that were building all of the systems that like ensure that everything that we had built so far was adhering to public policy and like making sure that all user data was protected, that this kind of like data breach couldn't happen again. And I personally thought it was really cool because it's like I know like this was a company that I was a user of their product as well, so it was like also really good to see that the data that I was giving them was even secure, and it kind of like gave me the confidence as an engineer. I wasn't like a privacy engineer; I was like a normal software engineer, but it gave me confidence to be like, okay, like everything I build from now on will be vetted like against what is the standard these days. So then it helped me like just know that I was kind of like doing the right thing. I wasn't harming anybody. Like nothing I could build could be abused, stuff like that. So I think that's an example of like a big company setting the standard to other smaller companies because I'm like my company was pretty small, so I'm sure that there was so many other companies almost in that same exact position where they were looking up to the Googles and the Facebooks to see what they were doing since they were doing it at a much bigger scale and it had worked. So yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Great explanation of that. And thank you so much for the gifts and the like. Everybody, if you're enjoying these answers, like feel free to gift our creators because we have a competition every single time. We always wonder who's going to come out on top. It's actually very exciting to watch from my side. Thank you for that explanation, Zia. That was extremely helpful. And it just brings some real life examples to the table. Dweez, do you want to touch on any examples that you see, like either with companies enforcing this or also with maybe personal that you've experienced?
Well, on a personal skill, yeah. So there are legislations being developed, right? So, for example, with data privacy in the EU, that's different, for example, compared to data privacy in China. It's different. And because of that, you have, for example, the version of TikTok that you have in China or the TikTok you have in Europe or in the US. It's not the same thing. It's like a completely different thing. And these legislations that are being developed, like they are being made just because yeah, we are concerned about data privacy. But I think yeah, like sorry, I think the fact that when you have different, like we have one company, but because of different legislations in different regions, I think it makes it hard for them as well. Like if you are, for example, a privacy engineer, like what are the criteria that you need to keep up with? I think it's a really complicated thing, like because of globally, it deviates a bit from the topic, but globally you have different regions with different policies in regards to privacy, and you have one company. So within the company, you are going to have to find different sections of different groups of people that are working on different types of policies for data privacy. So I think it's just really hard. It's like people said, master. I've had questions about the climate earlier. It's like environmental problems. They are transboundary. You cannot just have the problem here and it not affecting somewhere else. And with data privacy, I think it comes down to the same thing, which it's a really, I personally think that the moment you have different regions, different actors involved, it can get really difficult to maintain a standard.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Great explanation. I see we have some new people that have joined our live. We have a ton of great resources on our channel, so feel free to give us a follow. And we're talking about ethics and coding today. So if you have any questions around ethics and coding, feel free to pop them in the chat. We're just jumping into some chat questions now. But these guys are well adversed in the field and they have really great answers that they're providing. So it's really good. And thank you so much for the gifts that are coming through. we really appreciate it on our side. So let's jump into some questions in the chat here. Our first question, and this was right off the start of our live, and we appreciate it, is it ethical to use OpenAI to write my code? Hmm. Anybody answer this? I feel like that's like a gray zone.
Dweez, you want to go first here?
Yeah, sure. Is it ethical to use OpenAI to write my code?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, if you're using it as a tool, I personally, I don't see anything wrong with using tools when you're writing code, as long you write clean, comprehensible code. It should not be like a problem. Like if you there's, for example, GitHub Copilot, developers use it. There's many different tools developers use to help them out when coding. They use code snippets, maybe. There's many different things you could use to aid you during the development process to speed up the process. So I don't see, you guys may agree or disagree with me on this, but I don't see anything wrong with it. It becomes wrong when you are using someone else's code and you maybe completely like disregard the work that went in it and you say, yeah, I made this. Then it's, that's a different topic, but I don't see anything ethically wrong with using like someone else's code. It's like writing a research paper, at least in my eyes. Like as long as you are, for example, when you write a paper, you cite the original author, then it's fine. But the moment you are taking credit for it and you won't, I don't know, and with it's software engineering at least, like with when you're documenting, you don't typically see developers write, yeah, or from what I know, maybe correct me if I'm wrong on this one as well, that they say, I got this code from Ziad. I went on Ziad's GitHub and I just stole this code and I wrote it and I took credit for it and I didn't give any credit. I think this is a practice that's very important that it's done. As long as you're giving others their credits, I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, jump in.
Yeah. I think I agree with Dweez here. Like, so for example, like GitHub Copilot is actually written using like GPT-3 underneath the hood, so it's kind of like the Chat GPT of coding. So you're kind of like everybody who's using Copilot is already kind of doing this because like some parts of their code will be auto-generated now. But at the same time, like to go to Dweez's point, like I think there's this like unspoken rule within the developer community that like everybody is better off if we use each other's code to build new things. That's kind of the whole idea of like open source projects like npm and yarn and all that, because they allow you to use like other things that other people have built in order to build something better, and that will inevitably be better for the entire like developer community. Now obviously there's like a lot of rules that goes into this, like whether something is free and open source versus whether it's something that you have to cite in your project or something like that. But for the most part, like if you're building like a new app, there's a lot of things that you don't have to code from scratch today because other people have built it. Like for example, if you're building an app and you want to let users like type in an email and a password and log in, you're not going to be the one, like for the most part anyways, you're not going to be the one like encrypting those passwords and making sure they're secure or something. No, you're just going to like hand that off to some Google service or some Amazon service, and they're going to do that for you. And somebody wrote that code, but you're just kind of like using it anyways because it makes your life easier. And that's actually kind of why these products were built in the first place. Like that's why Amazon has AWS, is so that the developer community can build more with less, essentially. So like my ability to sit from my house on a laptop and like build an entire mobile app or website or something wouldn't be possible if I had to write every single like functionality from scratch. So that's kind of how I think about like can you use other people's code, or can you, or do you have to write everything? Like, it's like software engineering is definitely like a exception, because if you ask like English researchers, or sorry, English what's it called, English professors or something like that, like they'll tell you like, no, like you have to write, everything has to be generic, like generated by yourself. You can't just like take other people's stories and modify them to be your own or something. But for engineering it is a little bit different, because I mean the community kind of helps each other out. Like there's websites like Stack Overflow and all the different like GitHub repositories out there that have pre-built code. I mean, people are purposely sharing those publicly so that they can like help the wider community. So I think that's part of the reason I love tech as well, because it kind of shows you that there's like a network of people who really believe that this is like for the greater good of the development community, and they'll help each other out. But at the same time, I like, this is kind of me and Dweez's opinion, so people here might have like a little bit of different opinions about this, but like I think for the most part, using others' code is kind of like it's kind of written off as okay to an extent in the coding community, is what I've seen.
Definitely. I have points to touch on that because I can actually get involved in this conversation. Like, ooh, I get to talk. So Sarah says in the chat, it's like Stack Overflow, someone who wrote the code, and you copy and paste what you need. And that's exactly what you guys are kind of touching on, which is fantastic. I would also say we have a video, and I think it might be a collab with somebody in the chat, but I know Dom was in it for sure. But it's like the difference between a designer and like a coder. They're like, oh, like if it's a designer, they're like, don't steal my code. But if it's a developer, they're like, oh, that's not even my code at the end of the day. Like I use somebody else. So that's just a really good example, I feel like, of what's on our page. But great points, you guys. Those are like extremely interesting to hear, because I know AI is just such a new tool and people are still trying to like navigate it and figure it out. So those are very interesting. I would love to hear other people's opinions in the chat too. I see that we have a couple coming in, so it's awesome to see that people are getting involved in the conversation. We have two more questions in the chat, which is awesome. So let's just jump right into them. This one doesn't really relate to ethics, but it's a really good question nevertheless. So the question is, I know Python very well. What other languages do I need to learn, but they're not into data science? This might jump in and give some recommendations.
Yeah, I can start. So like I use Python in my like day-to-day life, and like I'm not a data scientist or data analyst. I use Python mainly for like back-end development, which I think is like the majority of use cases. If you're kind of wanting to learn Python but not wanting to be a data scientist, that most likely means you either want to be like a back-end developer or like a full stack developer, which probably means that you'll want to dive into like JavaScript, I think, next, because that's like kind of what's mainly used kind of like in parallel with Python. So if you know Python for backend and you want to also do a little bit of front end, then JavaScript and like React and Angular and all that kind of stuff is where you want to go into next. The cool thing about it though is that like Python kind of really builds you a foundation, so you know a lot of like the basic concepts already. So what you're going to find is like, even if you don't choose JavaScript, if you choose like any other language, you're going to have an easy time learning it, just because you kind of know like the foundational building blocks of programming languages, and you'll just need to like learn a different syntax. So that would be my recommendation.
Great recommendation. Dweez, do you have any other ones besides the ones that Ziad said?
No, actually, I think it's like that. Like if you're not into data analytics or data sciences, you probably will be using it for back-end development. For some people, game development, but as far as I'm concerned, you won't need any other language than JavaScript. Like if it's for back-end development, maybe you could be talking about Java, or there are other languages as well. That it's up to you what you do, which other languages you use next to it, really.
Cool. That's fantastic. Great recommendations. I hope that helped whoever asked that question. I know it was a while ago, but we made sure to track it down. We're having a little competition here with our. Oh, Dweez just jumped up. Thank you so much for the. We're a little bit closer. I was gonna say, I'm like, oh, glad for Dweez. He's like
Yeah,
so.
thank you.
That's awesome. Oh, amazing. This is exciting. Oh, okay, let's get back into some ethics and coding questions. So the next questions, well, I guess we kind of answered this about what ethics do you use? Like, do you use the personal one, or do you use the one set out? Do you guys have any personal ethics that you're like, man, I would never do that? Or like, oh, I think this is totally okay, but it's like a hot take?
It's kind of what we talked about earlier. Like, I know, like, people in the chat actually just reminded me of this as well. Like, there's a lot of like different licenses when it comes to like what you can, like, someone can license their code under like a particular license. There's like the MIT license, which is like the most popular one, and yeah, like the personal ethics there is that like I need to do a better job of like understanding those licenses and like knowing what is fair use to use and what isn't fair use to kind of like go off of. Because I know like I mean, obviously, there are some services that you have to pay to use their library, and there's other open source packages that people just kind of make and let people use under a specific license. So I think my personal take on this is like, as a developer, everybody has a responsibility to like understand user privacy and understand what is correct and what isn't, because what a lot of us will do is like when you're building a side project or something, you won't really be thinking about that because it's not like that's not really top of mind. Like if you're building a new product, you're not like, oh, okay, but like, what are we gonna do about user privacy? That's just like not the first thing that comes up to like most developers' minds these days. So I think we need to do a better job as developers to actually like switch our mindset a little bit and understand that it is now like easier than ever to go in and take user data, or like it's really easy for hackers out there to kind of like access parts of your product. So you need to really be aware of these things even early on when you're building a product, whether it's at a company or in a startup kind of sense. So yeah, I think everybody has a responsibility to user privacy for sure.
Definitely. There's some great tips and just like a story to go behind it. I see that Dom has entered. Welcome, Dom. We're just talking about ethics in tech today. We have some really great questions that are coming in the chat. Really great conversation today. So I'm glad that you could join. Welcome in.
Nice, thanks all. Glad to see you here. Yeah, it was an adventurous trip here in Mexico, but yeah, I managed to join. Happy to be here.
Yeah, Dom's in Mexico right now. He's living the vida loca. I guess you could.
It's really hot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so great. I wish I. I see we're having like a pretty detailed chat about whatever we're talking about, like cases in ethics and coding. So I'm reading them as they come in. They're very interesting. So if you guys want to continue that chat in the chat, I'm reading it. So it's interesting to see. I bet it's interesting for other people too. We'll jump into our next question here. Are there any situations that you guys have been in, if you can tell them on camera, that have been an unethical situation that you've maybe faced? We'll go to Dweez and then we'll go to Dom because Dom's just entering. Is there any unethical situations in which you faced, and like how did you kind of handle it? I feel like that's like an interview question. Dweez, do you wanna start?
Yeah, so an unethical situation in regards to just the ethics of programming or data.
Anything you got,
Yeah.
whatever example you have off the top of your mind.
Mm, let's see. Well, actually, in high school,
Yeah.
I had a friend and he was really into like, yeah, let's just say cybersecurity. That's what he does now. But back then it was like this guy would like hack the Wi-Fi password of the school Wi-Fi with SQL injection and things like that.
In high
It was
school.
crazy in high school, and he wasn't like at the age of 15. He was already great at what he did. Does cybersecurity,
Wow,
and he
that's
actually, yeah, he got expelled because what he did was he entered the school system and he changed all of his grades. Like the ones that like in the system, in our system, the grades are from 1 to 10, and everything that's below a 5 is a fail basically. And he changed all of his grades to make them 6 plus. He was a smart guy, but there were some of the courses he took he wasn't great at. He changed them, and then yeah, of course the school found out. They expelled him for a few weeks, and yeah, I didn't really see him much after that anymore. He wasn't like doing what he did at least. Like he wasn't like hacking or anything like that, but he did do that. Back then, I guess the system, I don't know how things are now in regards to security, but back then it was apparently just a pretty easy thing to do. I mean, not easy, but if a 15-year-old with no formal background can do it, you definitely ask yourself how much we progressed in it. So yeah, he changed his ways. A few months ago, I saw him on Facebook, and he does cybersecurity, and he changed his ways. He's not the hacker anymore.
No
Yeah,
kidding. Really interesting. That's crazy that he did that in high school. That was honestly a really good example. I feel like you would know it a while ago.
yeah. I if personally like I really see like people you can go to jail for this. There's a tons of stories on the internet. Like you read like people were hacking, breaching data they weren't supposed to be doing these things, and you can really end up in jail without like at the moment. I don't think you realize what you're doing, but it shouldn't be something to mess around with.
Definitely. I totally agree. It's just a scary. Dom, do you have any unethical situations that you were possibly in or a story like Dweez's that you could share with us and how that kind of got made?
To be honest, I don't have any unethical situations to share. I wasn't like a part of them. Maybe I just worked at few good companies, or I was lucky with projects or whatever. But I remember back then when GDPR was introduced, like, uh, yeah, basically a law that restricts companies and apps from just like taking data and using the data for whatever they want to. Yeah, that was a bit crazy when it came because so many companies still didn't do anything about the GDPR just because it was way too costly for them to change implementations and everything. And I don't know, some of those companies even like stored everything in database without asking for users, without encrypting anything or anything. I know one story when I worked. I won't mention where exactly, but they held passwords in database, like just as plain text. So that yeah, that was like a pretty heavy security breach, and then they were sending like them over emails and stuff. So yeah, that was pretty wild. But yeah, that's more like security issue. So yeah, I haven't been a part of like any crazy data breach or unethical stuff.
I hope not. That's really good. That's a good story though. Jeez, I can't believe they were sending passport information. I feel like that's like a weird like no, don't do that. So yeah, do you have any stories that you want to share with us? Like, I feel like we have some really good ones. Can you tell us any? Maybe you can
Yeah.
think of?
Yeah, I can kind of tell a story for like that. That was me in particular. This was like in college. Basically, there was a point like when I was thinking about going to college where I was either going to go to the University of Washington or UC Berkeley, and essentially I was kind of like deciding between both because of like tuition costs and things like that. And I started talking with some of the Berkeley like advisors, and they basically told me that like, hey, like if you want to check out our classes, there's this really cool websites that students built on campus, right? And like it lets you go in and view classes, see what other people before you have said about it, average grade data, stuff like that, kind of like a course research tool. So I checked it out. I thought it was super cool, and I kind of just like moved on. And I ended up not going to Berkeley. I ended up going to the University of Washington instead. And when I went to UW, I like realized that there wasn't anything kind of like that at all, like on UW. So I was like, hey, like this could be a cool project to kind of just like build here. And I like clearly it worked at Berkeley, so like why wouldn't it work here, right? And I kind of just like built it out based on their website and didn't even like think about what like their perspective or like what they would have wanted or anything like that, because at the time it was just like a fun project and students built it, so I was like, oh, who cares, right? Like it doesn't matter. I didn't necessarily take any code, but like it was kind of like modeled after them, like the way that the website looked and functioned and stuff like that. And later on, like when it started getting bigger at UW in particular, and they had like reached out to me, and they were like, they weren't annoyed or anything, but they're like, hey, like, it's pretty clear that you kind of like went off of our concept. Like, why don't we find a way to basically work together on this, right? And like at the time, I felt really bad because I was like, oh shoot, like looking back, like this is such a terrible thing to do, to kind of just like take their idea in a sense without really, like, telling them or even like proposing that we work together or something like that. So that was like a valuable lesson for me because like I didn't, even though there was no like, I wrote, like, I had written all the new code. It was completely separate people, separate schools, separate users, everything. But it really made me realize that like as developers, a lot of people are really proud of what they build. So it's like when you build something, you put a lot of like blood, sweat, and tears into it, and then somebody else kind of just like mimics it or makes a mock out of it. Like it really, it kind of it hits like a deep rooted part of you because it kind of feels like this is my baby. I built this, and like somebody else kind of like built something similar. So what I found is that at the same time, though, like for the most part, developers are actually pretty nice people that encourage like open source and stuff like that. So like when we ended up talking, like I found out, hey, like they actually really wanted to just like help me out and see what I can do to help them out too, because clearly we were doing something pretty cool for both students. So we ended up kind of like working together to make the website better, come up with new features, things like that. So I think it started out as like a little bit of an ethical weird zone, but in the end, like once you kind of like really address these things instead of avoiding them, you'll realize that like ultimately everybody wants what's like better for the world. Nobody wants to be like restrictive, and that's very true like in the development community especially.
That was a great example. Wow, I wish I could make videos about all of those situations because those are really cool to hear from my point of view. And it's just like that gray area. I hate. I don't know. It's cool. Like I'm not really sure. It depends. And there's so much new technology coming out that you're like, I don't know. We're all navigating this at the same time. Like whatever your gut feeling is at the end of the day. For people joining, we're talking about ethics in tech. Feel free to follow, and we're having a gifting competition between all of our creators here. So currently, is in the lead, which is exciting. So we'll see who comes out on top at the end of the live stream. So next question, we're going to go back to a question that's not related to ethics and tech. A couple from the chat, and you're all welcome to ask any questions about tech or about ethics. Our topic today is it a good idea to get a master's in CS in today's climate? Does anybody want to touch on or provide?
Well, it depends, like the climate, like are we talking about how warm it is or how cold it is?
You're hilarious.
I don't know. I'm just asking, like, what I'm don't
Yeah, I think
like
it's
in
referring to like
yeah.
tech layoffs and stuff like that. Like, is it
Mm,
still valuable to get yeah, to like get a master's in these days?
yeah. I
Well,
think yeah. Sorry, Dom. Please go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I can jump in if you
Sure.
want.
Go ahead.
Well, it's definitely an interesting question, because on one side we have layouts, and yeah, thanks for all the gifts, lady. On one side we have layoffs, and we have just this crazy state in the world, but that will pass soon. So now we have layoffs, soon we'll have hiring. So yeah, that will pass. And AI is coming. I would say that's like the biggest factor in making that decision. But overall, technology is just going to be way more advanced, and although AI will help us developing the technology, people will still be needed. Maybe less people overall. Maybe one developer will be able to do 5 times more work or 10 times more work with the help of AI, but people will still be needed. So if you like engineering, if you like computer science, then go for it. But if you only want to get it because of, I don't know, money, lifestyle, or something like that, then you probably shouldn't get it, because yeah, it takes a long time. It probably costs a fortune, and it's just not worth it. If you wanna make it like more like a short-term win and learn how to code, then it's bootcamp is a much better option because it just like takes 6 or 9 months and you're ready to work. And yeah, college and computer science degree is more like it's not only for coding, it's like more for engineering, problem solving, and software engineering in general. So yeah, up to you. But yeah, if you love that field, get a computer science degree.
That is a great tip. I feel like everyone's kind of nodding their head. So I feel like that really encapsulated the full question there. So thank you for that, Dom. That was awesome. Okay, back to our questions in ethics in tech. I feel like I'm on a TED Talk right now. So the next question here is, what do you guys think about using other people's projects for inspiration for your own projects? I know that Ziad had like a very close example to that now with his ethical situation. Does anybody want to touch on that or provide an example or kind of work out that question? Is it okay to use other people's projects for inspiration? Let's start with Ziad on this, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, for inspiration, for sure, because like, especially initially, like when people are kind of building side projects just to get things on the resume, like realistically, anything that you come up with at that stage, somebody has built it at some point. So it's like you're not. It's very hard to actually come up with something like super duper original, especially early on when you're in that phase and building side projects. So I would even say like you should go out and like get inspiration from other live websites, other things that people have built. Now it's a separate story if you're trying to build something for like commercial use. Like if you want to actually like you want to build something that's going to make money, or something that you're going to publish on, like really publish out there and make it into a real product, then it's a little bit different because I really, and this might be like a personal opinion thing, like I think that credit needs to be given like where credit is due if you're gonna be benefiting off of what you built in any way. And it's like so easy to like that's kind of why I'm leaning towards that side. Like it's really easy to build a website or something and at the very bottom just be like inspired by this, or you can have like an about us page that says like how you built it or why you built this thing or where you got your inspiration from. So the fact that it's like so easy to give credit, it's like just do it, just like stay on the good side essentially. And that's purely if you're going to be using it for like personal gain, whether it's like making money or a reputation or something like that. Then yeah, you should definitely say like, yeah, this if this was like really inspired by another project, you should just say it. But if it's like a side project that you're just kind of building on your own just to get like personal experience in coding, then yeah, like go out and use whatever you want. Like people are going to be supportive of that from the developer community, anyways, so that you're another person that can contribute to the wider network, essentially.
Definitely, totally agree. We want to jump in on this as well. Any if it's okay to use project inspiration for your
Yeah, I'm 100% with Ziad on this one. Like, if it's for commercial use, you shouldn't do it. But if it's for developing your own skills, getting better, you just want to build more projects, you don't have much experience in building a website or software or whatever, yes, then you should do it. I actually encourage you to do so, to build what others have been building to see if you can go and replicate it. If you can replicate it, then it should say something about your overall skills as well. I'm 100% with Ziad on this one.
Definitely. Great overview. Dom, do you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything guys said, but the only thing that I would also kind of add is that even for commercial projects, like you can still use other projects as an inspiration because many times you will be building something and you won't know how to build it, and there are like many open source examples or just many public repositories of already solved problems. So yeah, in engineering, there's no point in reinventing the wheel. So you should just like build up your knowledge and yeah, like 100% use it learn from it, and yeah, that's for me.
Awesome. We have one more question in the chat, and then we have one more ethical question to wrap up here, and then we'll be done for the day, which is awesome. This is such a great conversation. We just got this question. It's what certificates are effective to show in your resume for web dev and mobile, like specifically?
Mm, Yeah, I'm not sure specific certificates, but like I know that like if you really have like no experience, like no work experience at least, and you're just trying to like get that first job, for example, then there are obviously like just the basic like, you know, hey, I took a course at Coursera, or like I did a boot camp and they gave me some kind of like evidence that I basically completed this. Then that's definitely something that you can put on your resume, because when people are hiring really early on and like they're trying to assess like whether you're going to be a good person or not, ultimately they're taking a risk. So like the employer is taking a risk on you, so they're looking for any indicators that you're like someone who's ambitious and somebody who really likes to code and be an engineer. So I mean, if a certificate is one of those things, then that's just like another indicator that you're hardworking, you go out of your way to try to learn things like that. But I think ultimately, to be honest though, like certificates are kind of one of those things that are debated, like in terms of how usable they are. It's more about like, first of all, if you graduated from a college or a boot camp, like that should be on there. But if it's like one of those, you know, AWS certificates or Google certificates or something, I think like your time might be better spent like building projects and getting like hands on knowledge, so that in an interview you can like really show that you know what you're talking about.
Definitely. Great overview. I love it. I see that people are this live today and that they want us to do it more. Really exciting. We do this every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Yes, I'm pretty sure it is. I get that wrong because I'm in a different time zone than everybody here. But yeah, absolutely on and feel free to join. We answer questions every week, and we're just excited to get people into tech and just to share more knowledge. All of our creators here, because they're just geniuses in their field. And when I say geniuses, I smart and they know a lot of information about it. Feel free to follow along with our account or join us lives every Wednesday. We love having we love to share our information. So one question to wrap it up for the day is, do you guys have any recommendations for ethics in programming? So like where can people go to kind of learn these things, especially tech, or if they're just maybe out of some of the things that we've been talking today. Let's start with Dom at the top, and then we'll work our way down the list.
Sorry, I don't know if it's me or but you lagged a bit, so I couldn't hear the question properly. I don't
Ooh,
know if it's
yeah,
just me.
not a problem.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having some issues with audio. Yesterday on our Instagram live that we did. So the question was, do you have any recommendations regarding ethics in programming? Like, where can people go to find information on ethics? Or if they're just out of the loop, like where can they go to kind of learn more about this?
Where can they go to learn more about ethics in programming? To be honest, I don't have a lot of recommendations about that. So if somebody else can take that question,
Definitely. I feel like
that
that's a
would be
difficult.
awesome.
Yeah, I would say that there's like there's so many activists out there who write articles about this, about like various topics, because it's a pretty broad topic in general. So I know like Medium is a great area that like a lot of developers will go to write like articles about things they're passionate about, and like this is like how to protect user data when it comes to you know, building with X. And I think like what you want to really do is like, if you just want to learn about like how it works from a technical perspective, like what do people who work on privacy actually do, then like read into some of like the biggest services in the world, like AWS. Like how do they handle user privacy? For example, like I think AWS's service for managing like user login and stuff is called Cognito, I think. Yeah, like AWS Cognito. So you can like go see like how it works. For example, like what precautions does AWS take to protect user data? Because AWS is powering like a lot of products out there. So you can kind of see how the biggest companies are kind of handling this by just like quick Google search, like how does X work? You know, I think that's pretty valuable. And then, as I said, Medium is like I think the number one place that like a lot of developers will go to just to write articles about things they're passionate about. So I'm sure you could find tons of like ethics related articles on there.
Definitely great answer. I hope people are taking notes on that. Louise, I see you in your head. Do you have any other like recommendations for people, whether it be like books or podcasts, and just to piggyback off what Yes said?
No, I don't have any specific resources, but I think there are plenty of articles written on it. There are documentaries that have been made about this. I've seen documentaries. I don't remember a specific name for it, but there are documentaries about the subjects out there. I think if you just do a quick Google search, you'll find plenty of resources. Yeah.
Definitely. Ethics is definitely going to be an ongoing conversation in the tech world and probably with us, which is fantastic. So I want to thank you all creators for joining us today about our conversation about ethics in tech. And again, we're here every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Yep, that's correct. And next week's live, we're going to be announcing it right away here on all of our social media channels, on our TikTok and on Instagram. So if you don't follow us, go follow us there because we have our amazing creator content on there and on our YouTube channel too, which is fantastic. Creators, is there anything else you want to end off on before we get out of here for the day?
Yeah, just thank you everyone for tuning in. I think this was like definitely one of the more unique discussions that we'll have. So yeah, definitely really enjoyed it and love that everybody was really engaged in the chat. That was awesome to see.
Yeah, and if you guys, you're trying to get in tech, check out the quiz. I highly recommend it if you don't know where to start. It's just on Practicum USA on our website. You take the quiz and see which field suits you the best.
Well, thank you all for joining today, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Sayonara for now. We'll talk to you later.
So
Bye, Steve.
Bye.